Time to take a look at what potential seniors in high school could impact your favorite program next year, Drew. It was a heavy top 247 update for the 2025 class in the middle of October. A lot of film pouring through. What do we have? 5 new 5-stars, 40 newcomers to the top 247 as well. Not to mention a lot of guys being added to the top 247, a lot of 4-stars being taken away, just part of the process. No harm, no foul. But Drew, let's talk about some of the players that could make a day one impact next year. And we had a little bit of a rule here, right? We said we could only choose one 5-star. We get to pick 3 players each. I'm going to start with Jonah Williams. And I told you before we went to break, I said, Drew, I think I have the perfect player comp. We have been struggling to find this one. I'm going to go with a combination, okay, of Sonny Styles and Malachi Starks. And if you know anything about Sonny Styles, he is a big joker at Ohio State, and Malachi Starks, one of the best cover safeties in all the country as well at Georgia. And Jonah Williams, a kid that we love, we have ranked inside the top 10. He's the #1 safety in the country. Therefore, he is my 5-star that I expect to make an immediate impact, Drew. Dual sport athlete, baseball background. We talked all about that. The first touch of this season for Jonah Williams, he housed a kickoff of 95-plus yards. So he is a dynamic player that can do a lot of different things, Drew. I think he's going to end up playing closer to the line of scrimmage, but the more you watch him, the more you're like, this guy can really do anything. I mean, if you put him on an island, play man-to-man, he can do that. If you put him in the deep third, he can do that. He is a true life Swiss Army knife, and I'm really, really looking forward to Texas and Pete Kwiatkowski and how they're going to use this kid. It's just one of those guys, you don't overthink it, and you're like, he's just too good, too athletic not to see the field early.
Coop, I watched a lot of football on Saturday, right? I was hamstringed to the couch. And one of my takeaways on Saturday night watching Texas versus Georgia was, okay, I could see Jonah Williams, that body type, being somewhere on either one of these teams' defenses, right? Kind of blurring the positional lines, both units, Texas and Georgia. I mean, they have freak athletes back there. Jonah Williams, my #1 freak. I think this is an excellent selection, Cooper. With the 5-stars, it would have been easy to name, hey, maybe Bryce Underwood, maybe some of these wide receivers. But no, I do think Jonah is just so unique. And the fact that your player comparison, you are kind of like, hey, let's choose different all SEC caliber talents, all big talents, and put them together. That says just how unique of an individual he is. I love that one, Cooper. My 5-star, I'm going to go to the offensive line. And I know you wrote a story about this for 24/7 Sports. We got a ton of offensive tackles at the top of the board. How about the #1 ranked offensive tackle, David Sanders, headed to Tennessee? This is a guy that we have been high on for 3 years now, debuted in these rankings as our #1 ranked prospect. Cooper, I find this stat very interesting. Since Josh Heupel arrived at Tennessee, the Vols have yet to start an offensive lineman that staff has signed out of high school. I think David Sanders could buck the trend. Now, is he ready to go year one in the SEC? A quick look at that body. He's on the lighter side. Would say probably not. But David Sanders, if they can get him in to a developmental strength program and get that body right, improve the play strength, I think there's a chance he could be the Vols' potential right tackle opposite of Lance Hurd in 2025. Remember, they're going to lose John Campbell to graduation. Someone's going to have to step in. Tennessee's likely going to be in the transfer portal, but given what they have invested in David Sanders and his recruitment, I think they could throw him out there very early. Coop, I was also thinking about this, Josiah Thompson, South Carolina's starting left tackle, a borderline 5-star prospect for us last cycle. I think he's kind of similar to David Sanders in a lot of different ways, right? Both very lean, lanky guys that can recover and react. I think David Sanders is ahead of Josiah Thompson just based on where they were this time last year. So I think David Sanders, to me, I think we're going to be talking about him a lot come August in advance of the 2025 season.
I think from a disposition, from a technicality standpoint, not technicality, maybe technical standpoint, David Sanders is ahead of somebody like Josiah Thompson. As you mentioned, I think the biggest drawback on David Sanders is can the frame get there, right? He's hovering around 285, 290. You mentioned him getting there early, putting that body armor on, getting ready for SEC football is going to be important. The thing we love about David Sanders, Drew, and you know this, obviously covering him for as long as you have, I love the two-way snaps, even as a senior. Sometimes you don't see that all the way through. This guy loves football. It shows up on tape. I think he is further ahead. I do think he can play early. We'll see what happens. And I actually think right tackle is a good way to kind of usher him in to start his career, not put him on the blind side of Nico Iamaleava. All right, let's talk about a Clemson Tiger, Drew. I had to pick between Braden Jacobs and this kid, Tay Harris. And Tay Harris, Drew, I think has slowly become one of our favorite players of the 24/7 sports scouting staff. And this guy, 5'9", 3/4, almost 185 pounds. But, I mean, talk about pure football player. He also runs 4.38, ran 10.6 in the 100. He's 10.5 in the broad jump. So he is a mighty mouse, explosive player, and he is a football player, every ounce of him. And from what he does at Cedartown in Georgia, from the offensive side of the football to the defensive side of the football, to the way he key and diagnoses in the run game, to the way he's so active playing the deep part of the field as well. This is just going to be one of those dudes, Drew. He adds too much value, even if it's on special teams, where I think Dabo Swinney, who loves playing freshmen, by the way, Tay Harris is one of those guys you can circle right now. Just I don't know if he's going to be in the starting lineup, but you know he's going to be in the two deep. He's a dude, man, and he's a football player. And I might be reaching here. I got to go back and I got to go through the YouTube archives. But I'm like, who's another like sub 5'10" safety that's just all over the place? And there are a handful of them, right? You can go Budda Baker, you can go guys like Ugo Amadi, but man, who was the one? Bob Sanders, Indianapolis, the guy that's probably a Hall of Famer, right? That kind of comes up. I mean, that's the type of player this dude is. So super stoked about him. I know you love him as well. I probably stole him from you if I had to guess.
It's a great pick, Cooper, because Dabo does play his young guys. He does play the freshmen. And I think when you look at Tay Harris, right, first line of my scouting report on him is going to be lunch pail type of football player, right? Just a hard-nosed individual, clocks in, clocks out, does it like you said in all three phases. He'll come up and smack someone. I think what really sold me is we're talking about a kid from Atlanta, went down to South Florida this past spring on the off-season camp circuit, and he shut down a loaded group of wide receivers out of Broward and Miami-Dade County. He was excellent during one-on-ones. It was one of the top performances I had seen in that type of setting. He's also going to run track for Clemson. The Tigers are going to allow him to do that. Guys haven't done that there for that program since like C.J. Spiller a decade ago. So I love that pick, Cooper. I think we're going to see him on the field, and this might be a little spicy. Not really a breakthrough true freshman safety here in 2024, but I think he could have a KJ Bolden-like impact like we saw his first year at Alabama. He has that type of chance to make that type of impact. Different players, different body types, but he's going to be the guy that's going to be in the lineup. Coop, I'm going to I'm going to go over to the SEC, a name you just mentioned a little bit ago, Harlem Berry, our number one ranked running back. Headed to LSU. Yeah, Caden Durham, he has been excellent. He has been awesome. That is the bell cow for the Tigers. I'm talking about the true freshman. But Harlem Berry, man, he reminds me of Shady McCoy, just in terms of how creative he is at the second level. We're talking about a kid that was the fastest man at Under Armour's Future 50 event 2 years ago, went 4.39 in the 40-yard dash. LSU's going to score some points. We're seeing it this year after Jaden Daniels leaves. They got Bryce Underwood, our number one ranked quarterback, coming in. I think Harlem Berry, you can pair him with Caden Durham, ride the hot hand. They complement each other very well. So Harlem Berry, to me, I think he's certainly someone to know moving forward. And I think he has 3-down capabilities in terms of his ability to catch the football out of the backfield. Haven't talked about him enough just in what it means for LSU moving forward, especially with the emergence of Caden Durham.
I love that pick. Yeah. And you throw in Caden Durham, Josh Williams, probably out of there after this season, definitely out of there after this season. That running back room, that used to be a little bit of a concern for LSU. Now, all of a sudden, a strength. We'll see what happens with Caleb Jackson as well, somebody they were super high on coming into the season. You add in Harlem Berry. They have not had a skill set like Harlem Berry in quite some time. I think you have to probably go back to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who ended up being a first-round draft pick of the Kansas City Chiefs. I love what he can bring you as a receiver out of the backfield as well. So big fan of that one. Drew, I know you're going to like this one. How about Mason Posa, committed to Wisconsin, the linebacker, edge, whatever you want to call him, top 170 player for us. And you talk to some people around Wisconsin, they love this kid. Luke Fickell is a wrestler. This kid is a wrestler, state champion wrestler. You can play him off the edge. You can play him as an off-ball linebacker. He is tenacious. Drew, all three of these guys that I've mentioned, they're all football players. So when I say all football players, that is the biggest compliment that I could give you. That means they're tough, they're instinctual, they're dependable. That's exactly what Mason Posa is. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Nick Herbig, a little bit bigger, carries a little bit more weight. You can play him in a 3-4 defense as an inside backer. I like his pass rushing ability off the edge. I think that's ultimately where he ends up, is closer to the line of scrimmage. Drew, Wisconsin, I know you had some doubts a little bit earlier in the season. They got it going. They got a matchup coming up, I think, this week against Penn State. But, man, Luke Fickell, we know this team is very, very crafty when it comes to talent identification evaluation. If there is one player in this class that you had to pick to define Wisconsin, it would be Mason Posa.
Yeah, Coop, I wrote about it in the talent tracker on CBS Sports. All right, when is Wisconsin going to have something to hang their hat on? And guess what, Cooper? They are now playing the young freshmen, the young second-year players, and they are winning some games. So, yeah, maybe Luke Fickell was reading CBSSports.com. Coop, I'm going to finish up here with another running back. I know I'm kind of cheating here. Running backs, very easy for them to play as true freshmen. But how about Gideon Davidson? Headed to Clemson, our number 3 ranked running back. Coop was hearing some chatter that some other schools are trying to pry this kid away from the Tigers. Hey, Phil Maffa is no longer going to be at Clemson in 2025. I know they got some other running backs in the stable, but having had a chance to study Gideon Davidson here as a senior, I just love what this kid brings to the table. The combination of the strength, the play speed, the vision. He likes to hurdle people. Cooper, through 5 games, he's got 14 rushing touchdowns. Here's what really stands out to me. 2 kickoff return touchdowns. He also plays some linebacker. He was the Max Preps National Junior Player of the Year, averaging close to 12 yards per carry. Everything you read about Gideon Davidson, we're going to get him at the Navy All-American Bowl in San Antonio. This kid is wired the right way. He fits the culture there at Clemson. I just think he is someone that could step in, and it might be a slow burn at the beginning, but they can get him more and more involved in that offense. Again, Phil Maffa's gone. Cade Klubnik, he could be back. I think Gideon Davidson, a name to know. And if you're playing, fantasy football for colleges, got a dynasty, I would tuck him away because we know Clemson will ride the hot hand. They will find a workhorse of a running back. I think it could be Gideon Davidson at some point down the line.
Yeah, you got Marquise Davis in there as well, committed to Clemson, another top 247 running back. Clemson getting it done. Drew, they're going to play these freshmen. Dabo Swinney, whether or not he said it verbally, has been somewhat defiant to use the transfer portal. That's fine, but you got to go out and get guys like that. We got 2 guys on this list that we talked about, the running back, and then Tate Harris as well. You throw in Braden Jacobs. Drew, there's a lot of pieces from this Clemson class that we like a lot.